Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio, the most inspiring place on earth, for another edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Today, featuring the new, I got to get this right because it is a very cool title, the senior new media producer with the Detroit Lions, Mr. Dustyn Blindert. And we'll get to him here in a second. He's going to talk all about his job and kind of teach that next generation a little bit about what it takes to have a career in and around the NFL. If this is your first time tuning in for our Before the Snap program, first of all, thank you so much. We're excited for you guys to take in this very well and educated program. What it is, this program is here to teach about all the different careers in and around the NFL. A lot of people see sports and they think all I can be is a player, a coach, or maybe work in marketing or the front office, but there are so many cool and interesting careers out there. And our job here is to showcase all those careers to all of the people we have tuned in today. If you've watched us before, again, thank you so much for tuning in again. You guys are in for another excellent program as part of our Before the Snap series. As you know, my name is Jake Ray. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And before we get started, just got to talk a little bit about what we believe in here at the Hall of Fame. And that's our mission statement. Our mission is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which not only make our Hall of Famers great football players, but they make them great men, great brothers, fathers, cousins, members of their community. And most importantly, those values can make you a great employee, a great student, wherever you might be right now, whether you're in high school, college, or you're a young professional. These values can make you the best at whatever you guys are doing right now in your lives. So if there's anything you take away from today, it's the importance of those 5 values. And I can guarantee you those 5 values will pop up in some of the answers that we talk about and the things we talk about today. Before we do get started, some other thank yous I'd like to pass out. First off, I want to thank Dustyn for being a part of the program, taking time out of your busy schedule. We know the NFL season is a busy one. You don't just get the time off here and there. There are so many different things that you have on your plate right now. So we appreciate you taking the time to be a part of the program. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, administrators, educators, professors, anybody that allowed us to come into your classroom today or sent this out to their students. Thank you so much for promoting our programming. We're super excited to just be a small part of your learning experience. And then lastly, got to thank the students. Without you guys today, this program does not take place. Now, I have questions prepared. I know Nathan's out there. He's got some questions that he's ready to ask, but we don't want to ask them. We want you guys to tune in. We want to hear from you students who are tuning in today. We can't ask your questions if you don't submit it there in the YouTube comment section. So in the chat there, put your name, your school you go to, and ask your question. Nathan's out in the Gold Jacket Lounge today, like he always is, watching that feed to feed us some questions from all of our students tuning today. So definitely get your questions in. This program's here for you to ask your questions to Dustyn. As we said, today, we are lucky and grateful to be joined by Dustyn Blindert. He is currently in his 5th season as the senior new media producer with the Detroit Lions. 5-time Michigan Emmy award-winning video producer with over a decade of experience in both professional sports media and entertainment. So short and sweet, with that, I'd like to welcome today Mr. Dustyn Blindert. Dustyn, welcome to the program.
Hi, Jake. Thank you so much for having me today. And just want to say hello to all the teachers and educators out there, and all the students. I hope that this is helpful and we'll have some fun along the way.
Sounds great. And let's get started. We'll just dive right in. 10,000 foot view, the senior new media producer. I don't know what that means. And so I'm sure our students are kind of curious to wonder, what does that title mean? And on a 10,000 foot view, what do you do on a day-to-day basis with the Lions?
Well, it's just a fancy way. First of all, it says senior, and that means that I'm the oldest one on our video team. But it's just a fancy way of saying that I create video, and it's a really cool opportunity, and just a wonderful job to be in. And yeah, a lot of my day to day, I create video, but there's so many different parts of creating video and the production process, from writing to conceptualizing, the storyboarding to shooting and lighting, and then actually sitting down and putting the story together in an editor. So there's a lot to it, and it keeps me on my toes, and I really enjoy it a lot.
Out of all those, because, it sounds like, you do the full process. You're not just the guy that sits at the computer and edits. You're not just the guy who runs the production or sets up the lighting. It sounds like you have your hand in a little bit of all that. Is there a part of that that's your favorite, or maybe, where your background is most suited for?
Yeah, I'm basically a utility guy, and most of our staff that are in the video world, we have to be able to, pick up a camera and go shoot, and be able to write storyboards and script out our videos. And it's really good to equip yourself in that way to do video production, because a lot of jobs, and it's not just sports jobs nowadays, a lot of the video jobs that you see posted out there, you have to be able to, do all those different areas of production. It's good just to at least have an understanding in how the process works. It'll help you hone in on a craft if you really like a certain area. And for me, that's storytelling. I think that the Lord made me to be a storyteller, and he's blessed me with talent to be able to do that. And so I love telling stories. I love getting to know people and telling their stories. That's a huge passion for me. So that's got to be my favorite, definitely.
Yeah, I think that, when it goes back to it, yeah, there's this great piece that's produced at the end of the day that goes out on social or websites or documentary, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, you're creating and telling somebody's story. And I'm sure there's a pretty cool piece, personally, that's involved in that. And, just from that, it definitely sounds like, this is, like you said, this is what you're made to do. So why do you love, your job? The cliche statement is, you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. So why does Dustyn Blindert love working in video and production with the Lions?
Well, I do love video just in general. I like that format of storytelling. I always thought that I would be a writer somewhere, a journalist, but the video part of it is really neat, because there's so many different ways that you work in technology, and trying to figure out how to best use that to your advantage and tell a compelling story. I like that challenge of it. But yeah, I think that, for me, it's just a love, like I said, of telling stories. I really like getting to know people and to know their stories, and tell those stories in a compelling way to the audience. I just love that part of what I do. And then to be able to do that in the NFL, which in my opinion is the pinnacle of working in sports, at least in this country, I feel privileged to be able to do it. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I don't take that lightly.
Was sports always the goal? Was the goal always to work in the NFL, or is it, hey, if I've got a camera in my hand and I got a computer I can go edit on, I'm going to be content with wherever I end up?
Yeah, it really wasn't ever the goal, to be honest. And I'll tell you, I'm not really a sports person, and that's kind of funny to hear, working as a video producer for the Lions. But I don't watch a lot of sports. I don't get into all the stat keeping. And I mean, some people here on our staff, they're so knowledgeable about all the stats. I mean, they know where, the players went to high school and their parents' names and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just not that type of person. But I think that in whatever type of video production that I'm doing, it's just really becoming knowledgeable about the content itself. So I've had to teach myself a lot about the sport of football. I did know some coming in, because I watched football with my dad growing up and my brother. And so I knew a little bit about the sport, never played it in high school or anything. So there's a lot for me to learn about the sport so that I could do the content well and produce it well. But yeah, I mean, just to be able to work in sports, it's really neat. It's a neat experience, and getting to know the guys as people, the players on the field as people, and telling some of these stories. That's really cool to learn, because they really are. They're just like you and me. They're people, and to be able to tell their stories in that way is really fun for me.
And I think that's super important. When we have people come in for interviews for internships or part-time jobs, we always ask those, quote unquote football questions, but it's, we've hired interns who don't get any right. And we've hired them who feel like they could spout out the entire history of the game of football. So I think that's important you said that, because having that knowledge is important, but it's not one of those core items like, hey, if you're the best candidate and you don't know how many yards it takes to get a first down, we can teach you that. You're going to be the best candidate on paper. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, working in sports, everybody always thinks like, I got to be a stats junkie. I got to know the ins and outs of the team. And while that always helps, it's not a huge factor in obtaining a job in sports.
Certainly. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's a make or break situation. You're right exactly in saying that there's part of coming into a position that there's a learning curve. I mean, I think that's with anybody you hire on. You're going to learn, if nothing else, just how the organization itself works and operates. So I guess give yourself a little grace in that regard. If you're thinking about a career path and maybe you're not an expert in it, I think that's okay. And speaking specifically from a video standpoint, I'm still learning every day about video and the tools that I use and how to best tell a story. I mean, every day is a learning process. And I think that's okay to even look at life in that regard. It's good to learn something new every day.
Absolutely. And let's dive into that. One of the questions we like to ask is, there was this thing called the pandemic the last 18 months that really forced people to kind of, relearn their job in a whole new way. And thanks to technology today, things like Zoom, LinkedIn, all these online platforms, you're able to, better your career. So you talk about continuing to learn every day. How important is that for you, especially in the video world, where there might be a new template that comes out that everybody starts using, or you see another team go, "Ooh, I really like that. I'm going to try to see if I can do the same thing." So for you, how important it is to kind of stay up with those changes, and how do you yourself, keep learning in your career field?
Oh, Jake, it's so important to stay on top of things. I mean, just speaking specifically with technology, for instance, technology is changing at such a fast rate every day. If I don't stay up on everything that's being developed and going on, and the tools that are available to me, I'm going to fall behind very quickly. So it's so important. And, I just think that for someone, if you're, honing in on your craft, continuing to do that and learn something new is going to be a good way to look at, developing in the long haul. And I think your employer is going to appreciate that as well. With the pandemic, funny story, I don't know how anybody would have survived in our industry without the ability to do things like what we're doing today. I mean, this production that we're doing it's incredible that we're in different places and we're able to communicate the way we are. And it really saved our jobs, I think. So, because for us to be able to communicate with our fan base without the ability to be in the same area as the players, that was a big challenge. So to do that virtually and connect with players was job savers, really. But we had one of the guys on staff, he's our live production manager. He's just a tremendous person, just in general, but when it comes to production, he just knows his stuff with live production. Tremendous talent. And I remember the conversation I had with him the day before we went into lockdown, and he grabbed the live stream unit that we have to do our live productions. And he said, I think I'm just going to take this home with me just in case, thinking it was going to be a 2-week deal. And if he hadn't done that, I don't know that we would have had a draft show for the 2020 draft, because he hooked that thing up from his apartment and ran the entire show from there. It was just incredible. I mean, stuff like that is just amazing what COVID has done in how we do things virtually.
And I totally changed, speaking from the youth education side, we all had to sit down and say, we're not going to have students coming to the Hall of Fame. How can we adjust what we're doing to still present a great product, great programming, but we have to do it through a video camera and a TV screen or a computer screen rather than, face to face. So I'm glad you say that. And, the advancements in technology have been huge, and they've been super important, especially in the world of production. So with that being said, every week we like to try to tie in the museum as much as we can. So we're going to send it out to our Pro Football Hall of Fame Rotunda, where Kara Kwasinski is standing in front of some technology that you probably wouldn't want to use today, but was very pivotal in the history of the game of football. And I can tell you too, a lot of things you just said, Kara does a lot of that too. So you're speaking her language. So we're going to throw it out there to Kara now.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Pro Football Hall of Fame Rotunda, where we have a lot of interactive stuff. I'm handheld today, so just give me a second with everything. But here we have artifacts that are focused on everything from the very first games and everything in pro football all the way to artifacts that we have from today. So like Jake said, I'm standing in front of the artifact that inspired Hall of Famer Ed Sable. So let me flip this around for you guys to see. So his camera right here, this is, so Ed Sable was the creator and founder of NFL Films, and it's a camera he received as a wedding gift that sparked his interest in filmmaking and ultimately led to his Hall of Fame career. It's pretty old, as you can see, but it's pretty unique. So Dustyn, I know that you're not using this type of camera in your work today, but you can definitely speak to how the video coverage has definitely changed. I know we're using all kinds of film cameras to shoot sports and everything like that. So in the way that this camera inspired Ed Sable, what inspired you to get into this profession, and does that still motivate you today?
Well, firstly, Kara, that's just amazing, that artifact. I didn't know that about him, that he received that as a wedding gift. That's pretty neat. But just looking at that, that was a film camera, and yeah, it's just amazing to think about where technology has gone. For me, what inspired me, I think that, as I mentioned, I believe that part of my makeup is that I can tell stories, and I can do that well, and God has blessed me with that talent. Just to tell other people's story, that really inspires me every day to do a good job, and just work hard and help the people around me.
Definitely. Do you have one story that you've told that really stands out to you, or do they all kind of stand out to you in a different way?
Well, there's one in particular I'll say that was very special to me in working here with the Lions. And that was when I had the privilege of interviewing former long snapper Don Muehlbach, who, by the way, I'm going to say it here today, his bust will be there in the Hall of Fame someday. The guy's amazing. He's the GOAT. But Don, one thing about him is, he never really got in front of the camera. And I really respect that about him. He was just kind of, did his job day in and day out, and just put in the work, and he didn't want to be front and center. So I remember I'm an outdoors person. And one of the neat things about the outdoors is, and it's a rare occurrence, is if you see any species of animal that's an albino, that's like, whoa, that you don't see that every day. I remember seeing a white-tailed deer that was an albino deer, and I thought how cool that was. Interviewing Don Muehlbach was like seeing an albino white-tailed deer. The guy never gets in front of the camera. So I remember that day, he's sitting there in front of my lens, and I'm about to interview him. I just thought this is really special, because not a lot of people had the opportunity to do that. And it was a wonderful conversation. Don's a great guy. If you haven't seen the piece, it's called Under the Helmet, and still on our website. So yeah, for anybody out there, it's a good story. Go check it out.
That's awesome. We'll definitely have to Jake. We'll have to take a look at that once we get off of this program. But I'm gonna actually throw it back to Jake. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kara.
Yes, thanks, Karen. What Kara didn't tell you, she's also a very huge Lions fan. So this was that. I'm sure you said that name, and I could tell her eyes got big. So it's very cool. Obviously, everyone saw the story about him. 14, 15 years with the Lions. Is cut before the season, comes back a few days with the organization. So absolutely. And, you're talking production, and that's Kara's world. You're talking outdoors. That's definitely my world.
All
so
right.
I get that analogy 100%. We are having some stuff roll in, but I know Nathan's got some questions he wants to ask you. So I'm going to throw it out to the Gold Jacket Lounge, to Nathan Martin, Youth and Education Coordinator, for some more questions for the program today.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And thank you so much, Dustyn, for being a part of the program today. And I need to pause, though, and encourage the students. I know you guys are watching. I can see you guys starting to interact with some comments on the YouTube stream. Ask the questions. You know, Jake and I can sit here and ask questions all day, but we want to hear your questions. What do you want to hear about from Dustyn? But as part of my role here, you know, I get to research your background a little bit. And doing that, I was on your LinkedIn page, and you work for Cronky Sports and Entertainment for 3 years. And on LinkedIn, it says you edited branded entertainment for 4 professional sports teams.
Yeah.
And I was like, 4 professional sports teams? It's NBA, NHL, MLS, and then the NLL, that's lacrosse, for those of you that I had to look it up myself. But what was that experience like, being able to work with so many different leagues kind of at the same time?
It was a tremendous experience. And I'll say too, I'll preface with this, that was basically my start in sports production. So prior to that was my first gig out of college, which was working in outdoor television. I quickly learned that I did not want to continue my career in outdoor TV. It's just the television aspect is so demanding. So this was my first time working in pro sports. And the way that we were set up, you know, every team's a little different. I've also been with the Detroit Pistons, and each setup in video production is a little different. But here with Cronky Sports and Entertainment, when I worked there, it was set up for our team to handle all game presentations. So you see the big Jumbotron board in the stadium around the field. That's the content that we produced. And it was a good way to get my feet wet working in sports, because I was able to learn about 4 leagues simultaneously. And the one thing that I really took away from that was learning that every league was a little bit different. So when I'm producing content for, say, the Colorado Avalanche in hockey, that content's a little different in, you know, our demographic and the fan base, and even in the team itself, compared to, like you mentioned, lacrosse. You know, that's just a different fan base. So learning those aspects of the business was really important for me when I got into sports. And yeah, it gave me a variety every day, even in creating video. It was a lot of fun. And I also worked with my brother, who is also in video production. We got to work together there for some time, and that was probably, you know, still to this day, the favorite time that I've had in pro sports. That was really special.
Yeah, that's got to be special working with a family member. I know I can speak personally. I had a younger brother that was kind of an intern this last summer, and just having him in the office at the same time as me, it's something that I think I might have taken for granted, because it really is special getting to do that. I want to ask you though, so you've worked in almost every league, I feel like, at this point, you know, what is that one lesson that you learned that, like, the NFL is different? You said they're all different.
Yeah.
But what's that one lesson you took from that previous experience that you're like using maybe on a daily basis with your work now with the Lions?
Specifically what I learned at KSE. Cronky?
Yeah. Or even when you were with the Pistons for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I think back about those times, and, you know, I'll just confess to you all that I think I was there's a lot of pride there. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm big time now. I'm working in pro sports, and, you know, that can breed some pride. And I think that it did for me. You know, I needed to really learn how to humble myself, even though I'm working in a pro sports environment, you know, to stay humble and realize that, you know, I have a lot to learn always. And there's a lot that other people can teach me. I think that's a lot better approach going in every day than having a big head and, you know, thinking you know it all. That's when you're going to fall flat on your face sometimes. And I think I would take that away probably more than anything.
I think that's an amazing lesson. Humility is something that probably all of us could be a little bit better at if we're being transparent and honest. I see the questions coming in now. Students keep sending them in. I'm going to take some time and figure out what we got here, Jake, but I'm going to send it back to you to get some questions for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Yes, get your questions submitted. Put them in there in the comment section. And just like Nathan said, he'll be pulling those out and we'll be getting those questions asked here. in a little bit. But Dustyn, we've talked a lot about your career now, how you got to where you are with the Lions, kind of touch on a little bit of some of the other things you do, but I like to kind of shift and focus on, we talked to the how, we need the what and the why, and then how did you get to those career points? We talked about the job journey, but there's those tips and tricks that everybody needs to know. So, let's flash back to college. And you're, a college student, you're just getting about to graduate, and you're trying to find that job. What was the networking like for you? I was in college, that's something stressed huge to me is, got to get out and network. Something looking back now is something I wish I did a little bit better, especially with all the great opportunities out there to network. So for you in the production field, is that as important as any other field out there? And what were your experiences with networking while you were a college student?
Yeah, Jake, it's absolutely important to network and, continue to meet more and more people and build relationships with people and keep those going. That's so important. I think back about when I was a college student, you mentioned, I was really bad at networking. I didn't do it. And even when I met people in the industry, I did a poor job of just keeping in contact with those people. And like I say, really building meaningful relationships. And that's not speaking in an aspect of, just for my advantage, but I think just for, it's good to do that. It's good to stay in contact with people. And if nothing else, maybe you can help them in what they're doing in their career. But, I've really learned that in networking, it's so important to get your boots on the ground and, meet people, talk to people. LinkedIn's a great way to start, to have conversations and shoot a message. And certainly for anybody that's watching, go to my LinkedIn page and connect with me. I'd love to help you out in any way that I can. But yeah, it's good to get your boots on the ground and just talk to people, and it's hard to do that at first because you're just starting out. But for instance, let's say you're a college student and you're attending a football game. Well, if you want to get into video production, there's people shooting, the game with cameras, and some of them, I think you could probably maybe at the end of the game, walk down and just say, hey, I noticed that you're a camera person and I'm really curious about this, just some things like that. Think outside the box, but, a lot of teams, they'll have networking opportunities and, take advantage of those if you see those.
So you get into your college career and then you obviously at that point kind of have a direction of where you want to go, but flashing back, you talked a little bit about, you felt like you were made to tell stories and work in the world you're in now. But for somebody who might not have that idea yet, whether they're a high school student or they're a senior in college about to graduate, how do you kind of place yourself within a career field and truly find what you want to do with the rest of your life?
That's a big question, but it's a good question. My advice would be, find out what you're good at and then cultivate that skill. I think that's a good start. And, everybody's unique. I think we have to realize that, you're in a unique situation where you grew up, your life experience, the opportunities that you currently have, all those are unique for every individual. So, I think that you could probably glean from the people that raised you, because you spent the most time with them and they probably know you more than anyone. So, ask if it's your mom and dad that you spend a lot of time with and they have raised you, or maybe it's a grandparent or a guardian, ask them, say, hey, mom and dad, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I would be good at making a living at doing? I think that they can help you cultivate those things, because if you find out what you're good at and you enjoy doing it, you got it made. You can really start to pick classes that, will help you in making those career decisions and start to network in those areas and different things. So yeah, find out what you're good at and start to cultivate that strength.
So to sum up, we got find what you're good at, work at it, get to college, network within it, and then ask those questions. And then, like you said, we provided your LinkedIn link, yes, in the comment section. So anybody who's watching, go ahead, use that, reach out to Dustyn, and don't just connect with him, go that step further. Say, hey, I watched you on Before the Snap. I think you said this, which was really cool. And then ask your question. So there's so many different options. And thanks to technology, like we talked about earlier, the options out there to reach out are endless. Nathan didn't lie when he said he had a lot of questions coming in. Sent me a message. He got 4 great questions, he said. So no pressure, but he said these are 4 great questions. So I'm going to send it back out to Nathan.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. First question coming in is from Brandon. He attends Florida Atlantic University. And he said, could you talk a little bit more, Dustyn, about that transition from college to the workforce, where you go from, maybe never having worked a 40-hour work week to now you're in the workforce. What was that transition like? And then maybe even specifically working in sports, pros, cons, kind of give us a little bit about your experience dealing with that.
Okay. You said that Brandon was the name of the person?
Yep. Brandon from Florida Atlantic.
Okay. Yeah. Brandon, it was a wake up call going from college to, working in a full-time job in video production specifically. I always had this vision in my mind. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's because my grandpa, this was his work life, but I always had this vision of work being 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And that's it. And then you're good. You can go enjoy yourself on the weekend. I learned very quickly that's not the case. And it's still not the case for me. I don't see any end in sight there. But just, for me, it was understanding what work is. Work it's important. It's a good thing. And working hard is a good thing. And I had to learn that it's okay to work 6 days a week, and work hard 6 days a week. I always like that one day off. I think it's important to get some balance in life and get some rest. But yeah, that was a hard wake up call at first. And it took me years to understand that. So I would say that's one thing I learned for sure in that transition.
Yeah. You mentioned it in there. You kind of like to have a balance. And one of the questions we have on here, the student didn't put it here. It's what Jake and I put down. How do you maintain a good work-life balance? You're working in sports, so a lot of times your weekends you're working.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance? How do you get that day off, even if it's like a random Tuesday or something?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, this is so important. This topic is so important to me because I'm married, and I have a responsibility to my wife that I invest in her life, and that we're doing life together. And in order to do that, I got to be present. So having a balance and having time at home is so important to me. And I mean, honesty really is the way that I do that. I'm honest with my supervisors about that. They know that it's important to me to get some time off. And it's because I've had conversations with them about that, so it's just, being honest and it's work life, getting work-life balance is work in and of itself, to continue to say, hey, I need to check out here. I'm going to put in a hard day's work, but when I go home, I'm going to shut it off. And then that's okay to do. I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, even for students before they get into the workforce to start thinking about. Next question is from Emily, and she attends Rose Pullman Institute. And she wants to know, how did you get into sports? You kind of talked about how your background wasn't really sports. Mm-hmm. You aren't a huge sports fan, you've admitted. So how did you land in sports, and what was that like for you?
Well, this goes back to networking, and it's so important. So as I mentioned, my first job out of college was in outdoor television. And in my time there, I met some wonderful people and, stayed in contact with them. There was one guy in particular that, I guess I owe my career path in sports to. His name's Ryan. And Ryan decided to go freelance at the company we were working at together. And, a few months passed by, and he got a hold of me, and he said, hey, I was approached by Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. He had done an internship with them, back before he started his career. And they reached out to him and said, we have this position open. We'd love to hire you full time. And he said, I like what I'm doing freelance. I'm making a good living at it. I like the freedom that I have, but I do know a guy that I think would be great for the position. And so they said, yeah, awesome. Have him send his resume along. So he called me up, told me about the opportunity, and there it was. If it wasn't for networking and, keeping in contact with him, I might not even be working in pro sports today. So it was really cool. I so appreciate Ryan for doing that for me.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to kind of what Jake was alluding to earlier about the importance of networking, having those relationships, not looking at it as like, I need this to climb the ladder, but you want it to be mutually beneficial for both. And it sounds like that was a genuine relationship that led you into the sports industry. I'm going to stick in the state of Indiana for this next question from a student. And then after that, I'll send it back to Jake while we still keep getting more questions. This is from Nick, attending Butler University, the Bulldogs. And he wants to know, and this is kind of the same question, so I'm curious to see how you answer this, Dustyn. How did your earlier career decisions, maybe even going all the way back to your major and then your first job and your internships, how did your early career decisions lead you to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I think I can answer that differently. When I was in college, I had decided that, so the journalism program at the time at Colorado State University was very much an emphasis in news. So a lot of classes on ethics and news gathering, and that's all well and good, but I knew for a fact I did not want to work in news. I'm just not built for it. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger and invest in my own camera, my own computer and editing software. And so I did that, and I did something that I knew about and I liked, which is the outdoors. And I got my brother involved with it. We actually had our own TV show for a while that broadcast on some local networks in Colorado, and somehow or another we got air times out in San Francisco. I don't know how that ever happened, but we did that for a bit. And that, I think, taking that initiative and just saying, hey, I got to do something here if I'm not going to do news, that really helped me out, because I had a niche going into my application with the outdoor television program. I had a whole demo reel basically of stuff that I just decided to do on my own. And I really think that was ultimately the way that I got my first job out of college. Yeah,
I think that's a cool story, kind of those decisions that you make early on. And now you're looking back, hindsight, and you're like, wow, if I hadn't done that, I don't think I would have been where I am today. Yeah. So I know we have some other questions from students, but I'm gonna send it back to Jake while I continue to kind of process these and figure out the best way to ask these questions. But we'll definitely come back and get some more from our students. So Jake, back to you.
Yes, thanks, Nathan. Yes, I've got the YouTube stream pulled up here to my side too. I see these questions flying in, so we definitely appreciate you asking all the questions that you have out there, students. Flashing back now, Dustyn, to your career. Working in sports, I can say it, I'm sure you can say it. There are a ton of perks. There are a lot of things and moments people who work in sports get to be a part of that a lot of people would pay a lot of money to do so. So, looking back at your career, and it's expanding outside the Lions, you have a favorite moment from your career, whether it be something on the field, something off the field, a moment, a game, something that, or for you, maybe an interview that stands out to you as, your quote unquote favorite moment from your career.
Yeah, well, I think my mention of Don Muehlbach interview, that's got to be number one on my list. Shout out to Don. I love that guy. But I'll say too, there was a moment here that was really cool for me. Growing up, I mentioned I watched football with my dad and my brother, and I grew up in Wisconsin. So don't tell anybody I was a Packers fan when I was.
Hey, that's okay. Nathan and I, both Packers fans.
Yeah, but you don't work specifically for the Lions.
That's true. That is true.
But anyway, so growing up, watching football, and I just remember I wasn't a Lions fan growing up, but the Lions play on Thanksgiving every year, and so I knew that from that, just watching that game every year with my dad and my family, and it was part of Thanksgiving. Even in a Packer home. When I stepped on the field during that Thanksgiving game, my first season here with the Lions, that was kind of my aha moment for the NFL. And it was really neat because it just kind of flooded all those memories back of watching games on Thanksgiving, all the nostalgia with that. And to be on the sideline during the game, and I could see the broadcast cameras around the stadium, and to just think that there's millions of people watching this game. And here I am, one of a handful of people that are on the sideline during this game. That was really special. That was a really cool moment.
I think the ones where you can connect back to your family or your fandom growing up, I think those always, a lot of people say, oh, a Super Bowl, it's hard to beat lifting the Lombardi, or it's hard to beat a big win or a record break. But the ones where you can connect to your family always seem to have a little bit of a more special place throughout your career. Sticking to the topic of football, we here at the Hall of Fame, obviously, we're unapologetically football. Everything we talk about is all centered around the game of football. I'm sure that's the same case with the Lions. But we know the game of football is so special. It can teach so many life lessons, so many values. The huddle itself represents so much more than just 11 guys calling a play. It represents everybody with these different backgrounds coming together to achieve one common goal. So being involved in sports, specifically football, here for the last little bit, what do you think the game of football teaches those who play it, watch it, coach it, are fans of it, sit in their couch Monday morning and say how the team could have done better the Sunday before? What does the game of football, teach all those individuals about, their life off the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think here's where we can tie back those 5 values that you talked about, and commitment being one of them. Football is a team sport. And I've learned definitely through working here with the Lions that if one guy on the line doesn't do their job, things are going to fall apart. And I think that also translates into, the workplace, even for our video crew here, and pretty much any workplace. You're part of a team more likely than not. And there's people around you that it's so important for you to be committed to what you're doing, and to make sure that you have their back and that they have yours. And, just coming in every day and being committed and working hard and doing a good job, that's so important. And football has definitely taught me a lot about that.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it applies to anything. We see the great successes on the field from Hall of Famers, current players, but there's so much more that teaches that. We ask, you probably have heard this answer as well. You interview former players, and you ask, well, what do you miss about the game? And it's not the money, it's not the practices, it's not the game itself. It is, I miss the locker room. I miss being around my guys every day. And there's a lot that you can pull from that, because there's so much more that the game is than more than just, those X's and O's on the field.
Absolutely, Jake. Yeah. In talking there, you even reminded me that just like my time back with when I worked for the Pistons here in Detroit. I think back about those days, and, the people that I worked with, that was the most special time that I had there. And the thing that I really cherish that in my heart is those people. It wasn't necessarily the content and the job, although it was really cool. It's those people. I'm still dear friends with them today. To just be a part of a team like that, and to have each other's back is just awesome. It's really special. And I'm so thankful to work for an organization in the Lions that's important to us here. That commitment and encouraging of one another, and to do a good job and work hard. I'm really fortunate to be here and working for a team like that.
And I think that's what it boils down to. And that's another cool thing. We keep saying all these cool things about working in sports, but it's so cool to see, because when you see an NFL team, you think of coaching staff and players, and you see that the atmosphere that the coach tries to create. And I think Detroit is a great example of that now, with the new head coach, Dan Campbell, coming in, who's just a football guy. Mm-hmm. Like, he coming in and creating a culture, not only for his team, but the entire organization. It's so cool to see how that kind of trickles down through, from the owners to the guys who come in when everybody leaves to clean. Like that is very cool to showcase how sports relate to each other, both on and off the field.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
All right. I know we got some more questions Nathan wants to get to. We're going to send it back out to him to ask here a few more questions from our audience.
Yeah, I've got 3 here that I want to kind of finish up, coming from our students. The first one, Dustyn, is from Alicia. She attends Otterbein University. And she says, because of COVID-19, in her situation, she kind of lost a year of that hands-on learning in the video world. That's her career path, where she's trying to go. So she says she has less than a year before she's going to graduate. But what's some advice for ways that she can kind of get production experience, video experience here as she's finishing out her college experience before she enters the workforce?
Sure. Well, first I want to just speak to her and say, don't be discouraged. We all lost a year. Okay. Everybody got set back on a lot of different areas in their lives. So don't put too much pressure on yourself there. You can make up that time. I mean, it's just taking initiative. If you find some internships, even if they're unpaid, if you can swing it, do an internship. I mean, you're going to gain experience in that. You can put that on your resume. You can learn some new things. There's so much that you could do. I mean, even on your own, just in, like, for instance, in my craft, I am constantly on YouTube gleaning from people who are doing things really well in certain crafts. And I go on there, and that's all free. I go on there and learn a ton of new things. And, you can do that on your own time instead of, watching a Netflix series and binge watching something go learn something. I think that's a thing that you can continually do. LinkedIn, I know they had it at one time because I was doing the online courses. I think they might still have it, but they have like a learning program that you can subscribe to. Those courses are awesome. You can learn so much. I learned how to use Illustrator through that. And then, yeah, I think for me, what I do too, still to this day is, I work in video. So I'm constantly trying to find the best in the business and pay attention to what they're doing. And sometimes it kind of gets in the way because, you go to a movie, say, and you just want to enjoy the movie, but you're picking apart the scenes and, just, oh, they should have done this cut instead, or wow. But, take things from that, see what the people that in their professions are doing and say, okay, how can I learn to do this? Start to analyze those things. Those are all things that you can do every day, just on your own initiative.
I love how encouraging you were there, but I also love that you work in the NFL for the Lions, and you just told us, yeah, I go to YouTube to learn new things. Like,
oh, for sure.
We all can use that. I think it just makes it so real for all of us watching and listening, like, to know that here you are. We look at you as a professional. You've won Emmys before in the state of Michigan, and you're using YouTube, to better yourself. I think that's just awesome. Awesome. And hopefully our students see that as well. Liam from Dartmouth said, what's some insight you might have just kind of being in the organization, generally speaking, what are the types of jobs or the departments that are hiring those entry level or those internship positions? So he's like, so I can look at my resume and my experience and then maybe say, oh, I might be a good fit, maybe not in video, but maybe in community relations or whatever it may be. What are those departments that you kind of see in the organization hiring those, I guess, first jobs or internships?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, basically any department you can think of here, we're hiring interns for, whether it's, seasonal interns, definitely. We need a lot of help during the season, but we even have off-season interns at times. Just speaking specifically, like in what I do in day to day, we have, social media interns, we have video production interns, we have managing editor interns, CR has interns, football communications. I mean, across the board, there's so many opportunities. If you are interested in that, like I said, go to my LinkedIn page, message me. We can keep in communication, but we post these on like Teamwork Online, Indeed, our own website. So, just get out there and find some internships. I guarantee you there's some available, even more than with Lions.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I like how you also included where they can go look up those internships, whether it's Teamwork, it's Indeed, it's the team website. Those are all great points to make. And then the last question I have coming from me and from the students, and I saved this one for last because I think it's a really awesome question. And this is from, I don't know if it's Steven or Stefan. So one of the two, I don't know how they pronounce their name, but they attend the University of South Carolina. They want to know, to you, Dustyn, what's the most important trait to a successful employee in the sports industry, but really just in the workforce in general? What's that trait that you think makes a successful employee?
There's no competition here. It's kindness. Kindness by far will go much farther than being the most skilled person in whatever you're doing. Just be kind. Be kind to people. Our world needs that. If you see somebody in the hallway, at school or in your workplace and maybe you don't know them, go up to them, say, hey, how you doing? What's your name? I'm so-and-so. And just be kind to people. You know, that goes such a long way. When we're looking at filling internships every year, or even our full-time positions, you know, especially our full-time positions, because those people are going to be here for the long haul. You know, a big part of evaluating those resumes is not so much about the skill set, because as we mentioned before, you know, things can be taught in that area. Kindness is a hard thing to try to, you know, get somebody to start to have those character traits. You know, that just comes from inside. And you know, that really weighs a lot in our decision making. We want people that are going to come in here and like I said before, have our back and we'll have their back, but just be kind to everybody that's in and out of this building. That goes such a long way.
I love it. I love it. That's great advice. That's an awesome trait. Definitely. It's got to be one of those ones that we all should aspire to have. We talked about humility earlier. Now we're talking about kindness. I think you pair those two things together, you're setting yourself up to be successful really in whatever you decide to do. So I want to say thank you, Dustyn. I know the students are appreciative. They're already commenting and thanking you for answering their questions and that kind of thing. But I'm going to send it back to Jake. I think he's got one or two more to kind of wrap things up. But thank you, man, for taking time out of your day to answer the questions from the students today.
Absolutely, Nathan. Thank you. Appreciate you. And yeah, I hope they can glean something from it. Certainly.
All right. We got time for a few more questions. And I want to touch on something because I'd be remiss if I didn't. Nathan mentioned you're an Emmy winner. We said it in your bio there at the beginning. What is that like? I can probably say I'll never win an Emmy in my lifetime, but what is it like to take home an Emmy and see, you know, do you feel justified to like, hey, that piece of work I just won that award for was worthy of it? What is that feeling like? And do you feel some sort of, like you mentioned at the beginning, pride when you see a piece like that win an award?
Yeah. Well, I think that pride, you know, there's a couple ways to look at it. There's pride in, you know, are you getting big headed and you think you know you're full of yourself? And then there's also pride in your work, you know. Yeah. And I think that's a different way. That's the good way to look at having some pride in your career. And yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I'm proud of the work that I've done, and that's kind of like, you know, a stamp on that work. But I will say, you know, the one thing that an Emmy, you know, it's not my favorite thing about those types of awards. It's so individualistic, and the Emmy speaks to a team of people. It really does. I can't excel at that level in my career unless there's people around me that are also helping me do that. You know, we have guys here on our team and gals, they just are such great people to work for. That's why I love, you know, this team of people here in our new media department, because they're awesome people. And that's so helpful when you come in every day and you get along with the people that you work with. That is just going to cultivate, you know, success in everything that you're doing. So the Emmys, they're really cool. And, you know, if we have time, I actually have a really funny story about the first Emmy I won.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this was when I was with the Pistons. And I remember this was for an award in the art and entertainment category. So I'm working in sports and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I have a shot at this. You know, I got nominated. But then I started looking at the competition in that category, and I was thinking, there is no way that I'm going to pull away with this award. And I remember that night, my wife obviously was my guest, and, you know, we were there with a coworker and her husband, and we're sitting way up in the balcony of this place in this venue. And my wife she leans over, she's like, hey, you know, they're getting close to your category being called. Don't you think you should maybe go down the stairs and kind of wait on the lower level just in case you win this thing? And I laughed and I said, no, there's no way I'm going to win this award. She goes, I don't know. I think you should go down there just in case. She's like, you only get 30 seconds for your acceptance speech and you're wearing cowboy boots. I have a pair of cowboy boots. And I was like, no, it's all right. So I just sat there. And sure enough, they called my name and I jumped up so fast. And I was hollering down there, I'm coming. And by the time I got up there, I was so out of breath. I don't even remember what in the world I said to everybody there in 30 seconds, but that was really funny. That was a good experience.
Yeah, and it's those moments that really make the career. All this hard work goes into that. And you finally get that recognition. And like you said, I like how you phrase the differences in pride, because when you think of pride, you think of, that's my piece and I won that award. But I like how and I'm glad you went that way. You're prideful. Yes, you got a trophy to put up on the mantle, but not everybody knows how much work and how proud of that work that you put into it.
Yeah.
That culminates. And you couldn't have won an award. Great, goes up on the mantle, but I'm sure even if your name didn't get called, you are just as happy and proud with that final piece as you were and when you walked into that theater. So I think I like how you kind of put that together there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being nominated. I mean, that's a community of people that are doing their jobs at a very high level. So to even be mentioned in that circle is definitely an honor. Yeah.
All right. Last question today. And you said you watched some of these programs before. So if anybody's seen this, then everybody knows the direction I'm going. I've talked a lot of great things today. How to find what you want to do, how to network to get that job, getting your foot in the door, humility, kindness. If there is one piece of advice you want everybody watching today to take away, and anybody who might watch this down the road, what would that one piece of advice be?
Well, I would definitely say humility and kindness, and we talked about that. Another thing I would say is, just don't beat yourself up. Don't get discouraged. I can't tell you how many times in my career and certainly in my life that, I make poor choices. I'm not going to make all the right moves. That's part of life, and you're not going to either. But don't beat yourself up about that. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all fall behind. And that's okay. Just be encouraged and move forward. And if you need somebody to help pick you up, like I said, message me and I'll throw some encouragement your way and help you in any way I can.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this latest installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series, featuring Dustyn Blindert, the senior new media producer with the Detroit Lions. Dustyn, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program today, taking time out of your day. Every program we host, Nathan and I and our staff here look forward to each and every one, and everyone's different. So we appreciate you giving that time today to talk to us and all those students out there we had tuned in.
It's been an honor, guys. I appreciate you, Kara. Thank you. And yeah, just the Lord bless you all in your lives and careers. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know I can speak for Nathan, Kara, and Jerry, who's out here as well, as a thank you for that. Now, before we do all leave, like always, make sure you're tuned in to all of the great content we're putting out here. Follow all the Pro Football Hall of Fame social medias. I'll throw a plug in there for all the Detroit Lions pages as well. Check out all their socials, their website, see all the great stories. And now you can go to the Detroit Lions website, and when you see a video, you're like, hey, I know the guy that did that. So very cool that you can show that around. For us here at the Hall of Fame, follow us, podcast listeners, subscribe to our podcast submission, hosted by our great friend Jameer Howerton, who's continually have great guests upcoming on his show. And stay tuned to all those platforms as we keep pushing out content as the NFL season goes on. For all of our viewers out there today, if you want to know more about this program Before the Snap, feel free to check out our website. If you want to be the first to know who's going to be coming up the next month, please send us an email, education@profootballhof.com, and we'll get you on our list to send those emails out to you as soon as we have all of our programming going out. Again, that's education@profootballhof.com. Next week, October 22nd, right here on the Pro Football Hall of Fame's YouTube channel, we're going to have Megan Mendoza, who is a community relations manager with the National Football League, the NFL. We're going to New York to the league office to interview somebody who works with the NFL in their community relations department. So again, as I said at the beginning, game of football, it isn't just a September to February job. It is every day of the week. As Dustyn said, you're working weekends, you're working all throughout the season, and probably some holidays throughout there as well. So there's so much work that goes into that. And I'm glad we could shed some light on all the great work that makes that final product on Sunday, Monday, or Thursdays the best as it can be. So for myself, Nathan, Kara, all of our staff here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, to all of our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Dustyn, thank you for being a part of the program. And to everybody out there, we hope to see you right here next week on the Pro Football Hall of Fame's YouTube channel for our next